All right, guys, welcome to 9.1 Day 1. This chapter is about solving equations. Okay, so today's is I can solve a quadratic equation using square roots. So, little warm up here. Why don't you guys go ahead and solve this? Okay, so this is called a linear equation because the exponent's 1. So you guys know how to do this, right? Draw the wall, try to solve for x, right? Get x alone. So I hope you guys would remember to add 6 to both sides. And then you get 3x equals 18. And then to get x alone, you would divide by 3 both sides. So x would be 18 divided by 3, which is 6. Okay, so you know how to solve linear equations. How do you solve quadratic equations, which is when the highest exponent is 2, not 1? Okay, and that's what we're going to do today. And you know what? It's exactly the same steps at first. So if you were going to solve something with an x squared, you would still add the 6, just like we did over here. It'd be 3x squared equals 18. You would still divide by 3. And instead of x being 6, it would be x squared equals 6. And then the question is, how do you get rid of a square? Well, that's the square root button. Okay, so final answer, x would be the square root of 6, and then the only kind of confusing thing is anytime it's squared, there's always 2 answers. So it's going to be the positive and the negative version of square root of 6. Okay, and you guys can leave it as a root, or you could type it in the calculator and make it a decimal. So the square root of 6 is 2.45. So if you'd prefer, you could say x is positive and negative 2.45, whatever you prefer. Okay, so a little bit of notes here. An equation that has a highest exponent of 2 is called a quadratic equation. And one way to solve it is by square rooting both sides. And that's what we did here. We square rooted both sides. And in order to do that, make sure that the x or the squared term is alone. It's got to be alone first. So remember how we added the 6 divided by 3. We had to get it alone first. And then remember, every square root has 2 solutions. So don't forget the plus and the minus. All right, guys, let's try some. So solve the equation. Okay, so first thing you want to do is make sure the squared term is alone. And if you look at number 1, it is. Okay, so there's no numbers outside of it. It's alone. So we can go straight to square root both sides. And square rooting the square cancel. So you're left with y equals. And then what is the square root of 36? It's positive and negative 6. You always got to remember to put that plus or minus when you square root something. Okay, number 2, make sure the squared term is alone first. So on this one, we have to draw the wall and we have to add the 8 over first, because you have to get the squared term alone first. Okay, so we have c squared equals 24. And now that it's alone, to get rid of the square, we square root. And then those cancel and we get c. All right, so what is the square root of 24? That's plus or minus 4.9. And I did that in the calculator. Okay, number 3. Again, make sure the squared term is alone first. So how do we undo 2 times x squared? Well, we divide both sides by 2 first. Okay, so those cancel. So now we're at x squared equals 4. And now that it's alone, we square root both sides. And these cancel. X equals plus or minus, and the square root of 4 is 2. So 2 and negative 2. All right, guys, let's keep going. On to the back. Okay, these just get a little bit harder. So number 4, we got to isolate first. So just pretend you're solving a normal equation. You guys would minus the 5, and we'd be at 3x squared equals 25. And then you would divide by 3, and you'd be at x squared equals, I'm just going to leave it as 25 over 3. If you'd rather get it as a decimal, that's fine. All right, now that we're isolated, we get to square root both sides. And I'm going to need a calculator for this. X is plus or minus. We're going to do the square root of fraction 25 over 3. Okay, the square root of 25 thirds, and that's 2.89. So plus or minus 2.89. Okay, you guys are doing great. Number 5. Same thing. You got to isolate first, which means minus 12 from both sides. And now we're at negative 4a squared equals negative 16. And then to get rid of multiplying by negative 4, we divide both sides by negative 4. And we're now at a squared equals 4. And then you know what to do. Square root both sides. And these cancel. A is going to be plus or minus, and the square root of 4 is 2. So positive and negative 2. All right, last one. Number 6. It's already isolated, but when we square root both sides, let's see what we get. Square root of negative 12, you're going to get an error. So it turns out this one has no solution. So there's a rule. You're not allowed to square root a negative number. It doesn't work. So whenever you end up square rooting a negative number, it means there's no solution. And you'll know because the calculator will say error. Okay, nice job, guys. That's it. Thanks for watching.